Len and her husband Blake travel to an off-grid town called Temple Gate to investigate the mysterious death of many pregnant women. Being reporters and getting ready to report on the incident, their helicopter suddenly crashes, with Blake waking up, not finding his wife anywhere at sight, forcing him to go to the town looking for her. Witnessing the horrors of inhumanity and insanity he could never imagine in his worst nightmares. Hi folks, I'm R and welcome to the video. Make sure to watch the last two videos I made about the Outlast series, Outlast 1 and Outlast Whistleblower Explained, to catch up on what happened so far in the story. This video will have spoilers. With that said, let's begin.
Please, Blake. Where are you? I'm scared. It's coming.
Blake, are you really sleeping?
I'm awake.
You should have slept last night.
Oh, I had to get that hospital footage organized.
Len Langerman, an investigative journalist on a mission in rural Arizona, investigating the mysterious death of multiple pregnant women, is accompanied by her husband, Blake Langerman, her assistant, and cameraman. As they're on their way using a helicopter, Blake has a quick nap, dreaming about a girl called Jessica, begging Blake for help as someone is after her. Blake tells Len about her, mentioning that she was the girl they both knew at their school when they were kids. They both try to shake off her memory, clearly a memory that they don't want to revisit. With Len asking Blake to fill in some intro footage, with Len opening on the premise of their investigation and the murder of many pregnant women.
You know a Jessica?
No. I mean, I was dreaming about Jessica Gray from when we were kids.
Oh, yeah. I haven't thought about her in ages.
Hey, we're crossing into reservation land now. You said I'm looking for some sort of factory?
Yeah,
We should record an intro while we're up here. Production value?
sure.
We're flying past the Havasupai Indian Reservation in central Arizona in search of the origins of murder victim
Hey, Lynn,
Jane Doe.
I don't think you should say murdered. We don't know that.
Oh, I'll say she strangled herself to death.
It's what the police report says.
Just as Len is reporting on a Jane Doe wandering bare feet at the area, a big white blinding light explosion disables their helicopter's engines, with it rapidly descending and crashing. When Blake has a blackout, waking up in a Catholic school. Blake, being dressed in school uniform and having a small physique, realizes he's back at school being a student. He's then startled by Jessica before a pool of blood floods the school, with Blake waking up not far from the crash site. Seemingly being thrown out of the helicopter from a lower altitude, miraculously not sustaining any major injuries, he walks to the burning chopper, not finding any sign of his wife Len nor the pilot. Blake, worried about his wife, desperately explores around looking for her, having only his wife on his mind. He suddenly comes across a grisly scene of their pilot being nailed to a tree, having his skin flayed, realizing he was the lucky one being thrown away from the chopper, somewhere out of sight from the people who delivered such a gruesome punishment on the pilot. Anxious about his wife's well-being, Blake finds a small town, observing the tower of a church, walking towards it in hopes of seeking help. Blake, going into a house heavily decorated with religious artifacts, he finds a man dead on his table, who had written a note before taking his life. The note is addressed to his wife, explaining that he cannot live with something he has done, instructing his wife to find feminine comfort in the arms of Father Nuth. A man seemingly leading this town, a religious figure that everyone looks up to, even to the point of letting their wives find extramarital intimacy with him. The religious symbolism doesn't stop there, as it's evident the entire town looks up to this man, called Father Nuth, as if they are a big cult controlled by him. In an abandoned house, a letter written by Lisa, addressed to Father Nuth, explains how she saw a large burning sun, similar to the large white explosion Blake witnessed while in the helicopter, which gave her vivid, terrifying visions. She mentions how after witnessing the exploding sun, she wants to strangle the Antichrist in her room, as if she thinks she's pregnant, and a strong desire to seek the intimate company of a man, specifically Father Nuth's intimacy. This in a way explains the reason why so many pregnant women were killed with their fetuses brutally extracted. Was Father Noth manipulating the town folks into believing Antichrist is due to be born in the town, putting an end to any pregnancy prematurely. Entering a small religious room, it seems to be a sacrificial ground where babies are removed from pregnant women, which horrifies Blake with multiple corpses covered in mud.
God!
After encountering a large, hostile woman reciting biblical verses, Blake runs with all his might, holding on to his dear life. After some time, he comes across some town folks clearly being brainwashed by the religious leader Noth, forming some sort of a cult. The bright, blinding white light then suddenly flashes once more, causing the town folks to become engulfed with visions, immobilizing them momentarily, some having visions instructing them to kill babies, and some other crying in fear.
Okay, hold him down. Give me the knife. Oh no. Daddy. Daddy, help!
I can't even see It's like they're hypnotized.
Daddy, help!
While getting deeper into the town, closer to the chapel, Noth speaks through a speaker that he's found a rebellious angel amongst them sent by God, referring to no other than Lynn, Blake's wife, bringing his sermon to an end after Lynn grunts and cries in pain, seemingly Noth torturing her. Finding several biblical notes scattered around, labeled as the Gospel of Sullivan Noth, it's revealed that Noth acts as a prophet sent by God, leading the town. A character called Val, referred to as the chief of deacons, was seemingly punished by Noth, who wrote in his gospel that she had betrayed him, with Val having had told a woman called Ruth that what Noth says is nonsense and that she seemingly wanted the intimacy of Ruth. Many people seemingly being the followers of Val are seen being imprisoned in small cells and cages, displaying how ruthless and cruel Noth is in punishing people who go against him. Blake soon comes across his wife Lynn, being punished by a fanatic, who manages to escape them and reunite with Blake, running through the wooded town to get out, which is named the Temple Gate. Lynn then stops due to severe stomach aches, refusing to tell Blake what they did to her. Noth then informs the town folks through a speaker that Lynn is pregnant after he examined her himself, instructing the town folks to kill her alongside her husband as she is bearing the Antichrist. Suddenly, two of the followers find Blake and Lynn and proceed to knock Blake to the ground and try to remove Lynn's child.
No!
God.
No!
God wants the child. God wants the child.
After some struggling, some other people covered in mud come to the rescue, killing the followers with their leader, Val, taking Lynn while licking Blake's face before one of her goons punches Blake in the face.
I've watched my father f*** God to death.
It's soon revealed that there are two opposing sides in the town, the Christian cult led by Sullivan Noth, following the testament of the new Ezekiel, and the heretics led by Val, who used to be the chief of deacons before, rebelling against Noth after feeling immense remorse and guilt of participating in a massacre of newborn babies. After Blake enters another part of the town, another flash of the bright white light, which many refer to as the sun, causes Blake to blur the lines between reality and fiction, finding himself back in the school he used to go to. On a blackboard written by Jessica, the girl Lynn and Blake didn't want to talk about, Jessica, clearly addressing the writing to Blake, explains she's sorry about something she's about to do and seeks forgiveness from Jesus, making Blake feel guilty for not helping her from a specific someone. Blake explains this is something he remembers, depicting how his dreams are just his repressed memories that he cannot forgive himself for. A picture taken of Lynn, Blake and Jessica when they were in the 4th grade shows how they knew each other very well and were seemingly friends. Walking outside of the school in the snowy weather, Blake suddenly falls through the floor, waking up back in Temple Gate when a man called Ethan assists him, offering his hand, helping him up, showing how he also opposes Noth. Ethan explains Noth shamed his wife, causing her to go to the cast-outs, or also called the Scald. Yet he was still steadfast in his faith and loyalty. His daughter, Anna Lee, being 15 at the time, was assaulted and impregnated by Noth, with Ethan still staying faithful. Then eventually Noth asks Ethan to rip his daughter's child out of her belly, which made him rebel and say enough is enough, raising against them, yet not joining the heretics either, with Ethan seemingly being the only sane person in this violent town. Ethan explains he helped his daughter escape, which is revealed to be the Jane Doe Len and Blake came to the town for, in order to investigate. As Blake goes to the secret basement to hide, Martha, a large woman wielding a pickaxe, comes to Ethan, interrogating him about the outsider whom he protects, not giving up Blake's hiding location, which causes Martha to strike him with the pickaxe and kill him right there and then. A letter in Ethan's cabin shows that he sent Anna Lee to his cousin Paul in order to protect her, lying to Noth and his followers that he sent her to her mother and the rest of the shamed people, whom they call the Scald or the Outcasts. Finding some scattered letters after going through the abandoned underground heretic temples, they read the account of Val, how she dreamed of adopting many children and killing them, which strangely caused her to get pleasure. She explains that others had similar dreams, interpreting it as if it's some sort of prophecy for Noth to order the mass murder of the children. However, for Val, she feels it's a message to rise against Noth, a message that is anything but holy. Another letter explains how Val finally understands that Noth's god is only his childish superstition and his ego, trying to control people, but that Val has the true vision, with her god being the truth, assisting the birth of the Antichrist, so that the Antichrist can destroy the earth. Managing to power up an elevator and go up to the main chapel, Blake reads a board dedicated to Noth, the founder of the town, known as the Temple Gate, with Noth being labeled as the new Ezekiel. It's only revealed later on that the town was sitting on a reservation site belonging to the natives, whom Noth and his followers brutally and mercilessly killed, taking over the town to preach their own new gospel. After some walking, noticing a well nearby, Blake hears the hums of Jessica, which he goes to check out, when supernatural bloody tethers pull him inside, teleporting him into the ventilation ducts. The ducts suddenly collapse, with Blake finding himself yet again in the school he used to study in with Jessica and Len, not sure anymore of what he's witnessing is hallucination or reality. A note in Jessica's locker reveals that she had a crush on Blake while exchanging notes with one of her female friends, Len, whom Blake seemingly was more attracted to. Exploring his school some more, Blake witnesses Jessica hanging when tentacled arms and a disgusting long tongue on the ceiling take her away. Suddenly, after opening a door, he finds himself back in Temple Gate with men wielding machetes and butchering their victims. Blake manages to escape them and reach a spiked pit where many pregnant women took their own lives after getting impregnated by Noth, depicting how severely manipulated they were, being used up by Noth, and then being willing to whether kill their own children or themselves. This shows what a sick and twisted man Noth truly is, but strangely, women are also driven with lust, seeking intimacy with their new Ezekiel. More notes display that not only newborns were killed, but also children, who were even manipulated into willingly giving their own lives, demonizing them and telling them that they are evil and that they just don't know it. But with one final act of giving up their lives, they could be guaranteed to enter the heaven. A sad note of a child called Julian then subsequently reads to how she was afraid of dying, but she was manipulated not to tell anyone that they're going to kill her. Nonetheless, she writes a letter to her mother in a pleading and desperate manner in order to be saved, saying that she loves both her mother and father. The cruelty and insanity of the town folks is only shown in letters, displaying the gravity of emotion in each word, with one only being able to imagine the suffering and pain the children and the parents who loved them had to endure. Entering the chapel, hiding in a confession booth, Blake witnesses the psychopathic Noth torture a woman to make her partner Josiah give up information about where Val is hiding Len. He informs them that she's hiding in the mines on the mountain, which leads to Noth killing both the woman called Mary and the man in a brutal and barbaric fashion. As Blake decides to head to the mines and rescue his wife, he becomes plagued with his past life memories in form of realistic hallucinations once more, being back to the school. Feeling immense guilt for the death of Jessica, he sees doodled sketches of her being on the rope, until he sees a monstrous being attacking him and grabbing his legs with his tentacled arms and tongue when he's in the vents, suddenly going back to the temple gate. This explains the tentacles and the tongue taking Jessica's corpse were part of no other than this monstrous entity that is also hunting and chasing after Blake. Back on his way to the mines, Blake comes across the Scald, the outcasts who are thrown in neglected cabins deep in the forest. They are all plagued with diseases and poor hygiene, awaiting their slow and agonizing death. Their leader is a deformed dwarf called Laird, mounting a large man called Nick Tremblay. Despite being outcasted by Noth and looked at with contempt, they all still look up to Noth as their prophet and follow him. Escaping Laird, Blake finds himself back at the school again with Jessica's memory still haunting him. On a computer, he reads an email dated 1995 sent to Father Porcari, one of the school priests, by the school counselor, Shelley, mentioning how she was informed by the other school priest, Father Lautermich, that it's not a good idea letting Jessica go to the school trip as she's a risk of being a runaway, especially due to having a hard-headed father and having had lost her mother in a tragedy. Instead, they all decide with Father Porcari's final permission to keep Jessica in the library to study. This displays how it was a Catholic school that they went to and how important the decision of the priests were in having a say about the students. Going yet again back to the vent ducts, Blake finds himself back in the temple gate where he gets taken by Laird. He performs a strange little ritual, believing he's the Scald Messiah, as somehow his experiment results in him noticing he's pure. Laird orders his followers to crucify him and bury him alive so that he can rise, being reborn as the true Messiah. Blake, just having enough at this point, not able to mentally and physically defend himself against these lunatics, gets nailed to a cross, being labeled as a messiah by the Scald. After they leave him, in a gruesome scene, Blake pulls his hands out of the nails and finds his camcorder, possibly to just navigate through the darkness at this point. As he mentioned, he only has finding his wife on his mind now. Suddenly, Blake finds himself back at the school again. The monstrous entity is stronger here, chasing after Blake at several points, causing the school to distort and get physically corrupted when Jessica shouts out that he's coming, with Blake managing to narrowly escape it.
He's coming!
Hiding in a locker and getting out, he's yet again back to Temple Gate with Laird chasing after him, calling Blake his lord, yet shooting towards him with arrows. Eventually, Laird catches Blake when he gets tangled in a barbed wired barricade, burying him alive, dismissing it as a necessity so that Blake can resurrect as Messiah did. Luckily for Blake, the depth of grave is not deep, with just a few centimeters of soil on top of his coffin, which he easily breaks out of. He soon gets a rope and starts to climb down from a cabin, heading to the mines within sight. When Laird alongside two of the Scald come to pull him up, when the Scald push Laird down, displaying how they didn't approve of him, as he wasn't very good at manipulation. Instead, he used the strength of his mount, Nick, to scare his followers. As approaching the mines, Blake yet again loses the sense of reality and finds himself back at school, stalked and followed by the monstrous creature. After listening to the heartbreaking prayers of Jessica, pleading for her safety, Blake is then back to Temple Gate, being close to a lake. As he goes up a cliff, he notices a bright radio tower, having intermittent flashes of bright lights, similar to the bright blinding white light that flashes often, causing the town folks to lose their minds. Blake, not having any clue to what it is, he dismisses it and continues on his mission to find Lynn. Eventually, Blake gets on a small wooden raft to get across the lake to the mines, when suddenly fog takes over his field of sight, with another flash of bright light coming from the bright radio tower he observed before, causing the fish around him die and float on the surface. Even Blake starts to believe that the apocalypse is approaching at this point, believing in what the town folks predicted, and the eventual birth of the Antichrist. Blake suffers from a short-lived hallucination subsequently, not being able to differentiate between reality and fiction anymore. Whatever is causing his visions and hallucinations has something to do with the bright flashes of light. Approaching the mines, he witnesses the piles of corpses who have died in a variety of gruesome ways, often offering themselves as sacrifice in spite of God, practicing inhumane and unimaginable rituals. Blake mentions to himself that Lynn couldn't possibly be pregnant as they haven't been intimate for several months, being confused to why they call her the mother and him the father. After yet another vivid hallucination of Jessica, he witnesses the sky raining blood, making Blake lose the grasp of reality and almost being certain that the end is near. Entering the mines, Blake encounters some of the heretics who have smeared themselves with mud and stuck sticks and branches on themselves, being more animalistic than human. Going deeper in the mines after being chased by some of the wild animalistic heretics and struggling to stay in touch with reality, Blake becomes horrified with himself and losing his memory, as at one point he gets confused to whom he needs to save, Jessica or Lynn.
I can still save her. Jess, Lynn. Her name is Lynn. I'm decorated with the dead. I checked faces looking for Lynn. Looking for my own. For Jessica. Making and killing children is the same thing. She told me to meet her in the music room.
Soon, Blake encounters Val, who covers herself in mud and wears a crown made out of twigs and sticks, chasing after Blake. After some time, Blake falls victim to Val, observing his wife Lynn tied in ropes, while Val violates Blake in front of her. This causes Blake to black out and remember when he was fooling around with Jessica at school storage room, with Jessica forcing herself on him, while he clearly wasn't too much into her. But being kids and Blake not understanding much, he dismisses it as playing rough.
You have to say it. You win, okay? You're such a pushover, Blake.
Jessica invites herself to Blake's house, knowing his parents aren't home, when Father Loudermilch hears about it and intervenes, confronting both of them. Father Loudermilch pushes Blake out of the classroom and manipulates him into going back home, leaving himself alone with Jessica, when Jessica clearly begs him to stay, as if she knows what Father Loudermilch is about to do to her, as if it's something he's done before, threatening Jessica with telling on her to her father, forcing her to keep her mouth closed.
Do I need to call your parents? Jessica, do I need to call your father again?
No, please.
I only want us to be friends. Nobody's in trouble yet. Does one of you think you can make this right? Jessica? Jessica, look at me. Will you pray with me? Will you help me make this right? Why don't you go along home, Blake?
Don't go.
Did I interrupt something between you two?
It wasn't like that.
Then what did you want? You won't say? You know, shame is a gift from God to let you know right from wrong. And what you want is very wrong. Go home and pray.
Stay. I want you to stay.
Blake, please. This is awkward enough. Nothing's the matter, but I need you to leave us.
Don't.
Everything's okay. You can leave, young man. Walk away.
Just as Blake is about to leave, he hears the relentless cries and screams of Jessica shouting for help. As Blake goes back to her, he observes how Jessica was violated by Father Loudermilch, who tried to run away from him but eventually ended up having her neck broken, with Father Loudermilch threatening him to keep his mouth shut. This is why Blake was constantly tormented with the vivid hallucinations and dreams of Jessica suffering, feeling immense guilt for not helping her, with the monstrous creature who had a long lustful tongue representing the predatory Father Loudermilch. The priest being a perverted psychopath, only seeing himself and his sick desires. He stages Jessica's death as self-inflicted in order to keep himself safe from prosecution. As Blake gets back to reality, he notices how the mines are raided by the followers of the Gospel of the New Ezekiel, killing any heretic they get their hands on. Managing to escape the mines and miraculously finding his wife being intact and alive, Blake notices in shock that Len is in late stages of pregnancy, with her belly swelling just in a few hours, something completely impossible. Len acknowledges her pregnancy and pleads with Blake that they should just leave and talk about it later to let their baby survive. The weather becomes severe, with storm and lightning destroying anything and everything, when suddenly Martha intercepts them, about to send them to heaven. That's when suddenly a cross, with the help of the weather, is specifically thrown at Martha, impaling her and killing her instantly. Seeming as if it's apocalypse and it's destroying the world, Blake records the environment and repeats to himself as if he's saving Jessica while holding Len. He continues that they will find adults who will help them.
The world was on fire and the baby was coming. The impossible child. Lynn said Jess was like her little sister. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. We're out. I got Jessica out. It was cold, but the snow had just started. We'll find a grown-up and we'll tell them what happened. We'll be okay. It's not my fault.
Finally, reaching the chapel, Len lies on the torture equipment Mary was killed on, giving birth to an actual child, but eventually dies due to severe blood loss. Before she dies, she repeats that there's nothing, seemingly saying there's no child, while Blake is clearly holding one, with Len believing she was pregnant up to this point. Blake, traumatized by the events, losing his wife, has a quick nap and then wakes up, noticing Father Nuth cutting his own throat and saying that it's too late, referring to the child being born as the Antichrist. Blake, still deluded with his visions and hallucinations, regards Nuth's death as Father Loudermilch's death, saying that he got what he deserved, with his brain trying to reconfigure the actual events, with Blake completely losing touch with reality.
The priest dies. You didn't have to do anything. You were a child. Nobody could expect anything of you. None of this is my fault.
As the sun rises, he goes to the well, noticing that all the followers of Father Nuth have consumed poison and taken their own lives, with a deluded Blake mentioning that Jessica will be okay and will grow up to be a successful adult, repeatedly saying that it's not his fault, clearly ridden by guilt.
She's gonna be okay. You have her. She'll get to grow up. She'll do everything she was born to do.
As he walks further, there's no sign of him holding any baby anymore, as if he disappeared into thin air, with the sun quickly expanding and destroying anything in its way, bringing the end of the world. Blake then reawakens in the school, with Jessica taking him to the storage room, saying that she will never let Blake go, and so wouldn't Blake, when they kneel on the ground and start praying. This displays regardless to Blake's mind and thoughts getting dismantled, with him forcefully trying to reassure himself that he saved Jessica. He can never truly let go of her in his mind, and now, with her living in his own reality, always haunting him. This shows how Blake, living under the guilt of letting Jessica die by the perverted Father Loudermilch, finally loses his mind and lives in his own version of reality, a fictional world where he saved Jessica. He even showed telltale signs of struggling to differentiate between reality and delusion when he couldn't tell Jessica and Len apart, mixing up Nuth with Father Loudermilch as well. Therefore, the last few hours leading up to the end are unclear to be whether accurate or not, as they were observed through the mind and perspective of a deluded Blake. Therefore, the pregnancy, the conversation between Lynn and himself, and even the sun expanding might have all happened in his head. But why did he start losing his mind after entering Temple Gate only? It's only revealed in the comics, told through the accounts of 2 Murkoff insurance mitigation agents, that Temple Gate, just like Mount Massive Asylum, was just another experiment project of Murkoff Corporation, with all of its inhabitants being test subjects. Sullivan North was in fact a cult leader who massacred natives in their reservation sites and founded Temple Gate. Murkoff Corporation, finding this to be an ideal project with these people being off the grid, as the reservation sites are off limit, they build massive radio towers emitting certain pulsating waves causing people to have visions. Just like the morphogenic engine, the radio towers affected each individual specifically, giving them customized nightmares or visions. Noth, with his followers being extremely religious, allowed Murkoff to manipulate their thoughts and dreams, making them feel they are being guided by God. Noth believed he's a messenger of God after believing he spoke to God. Murkoff mentions how they were able to manipulate people and make Temple Gate experiment possible through taking advantage of religious beliefs and higher power. It's further explained that 1 in 3 women working for Murkoff experience psychosomatic pregnancy, or also known as phantom pregnancy. Hence why they were moved to a different department from the Mount Massive Asylum. The morphogenic engine, even though being contained, still was powerful enough to leak radiation outwards to work levels where majority of the employees were not aware of such twisted experiments. Therefore, what Len experienced was nothing but a phantom pregnancy, even having swelling on her stomach, hence why Blake momentarily saw the baby and it disappeared in thin air.
There's nothing there.
That's why Len had contradicting opinion that there was nothing that Blake was holding onto. The comics show that Len had a flat tummy and she died due to multiple traumas rather than the severe blood loss due to childbirth. Now the flashing bright lights were originally designed to be more organized and done in controlled intervals. However, due to ants breaking the system and bringing the radio towers down, they started to flash the lights intermittently. The radio towers were responsible for causing the visions and giving people dreams, just like the morphogenic engine, and the lights would give each individual a customized vision and dream based on their own psyche and thoughts. That's why Noth and his followers thought they're being guided by God, committing such atrocities and finally sacrificing themselves for the apocalypse. The heretics believed the opposite, and Blake was haunted by visions of Jessica, as his conscience was ridden by guilt his entire life, not able to forgive himself. This explains why Len and Blake's helicopter suddenly had engine failure due to being exposed to the strong pulsating waves of the radio towers. This is the same case with a mitigation agent who visits Temple Gate and suffers from hallucinations of his dead wife, which he explains to have been as real as he could get, as he could even smell the hospital she was in. Now, the ants are hinted to be the new hosts of Walrider, who in fact allowed Billy to survive, but soon he got disintegrated with weapons used on him from the Murkoff military. It is also mentioned that Miles Upshur is dead, however, some signs hint out that he survived due to Walrider and became synonymous with it, becoming one, hence why the ants destroy all the evidence in his apartment to keep his whereabouts safe, also the whereabouts of his associates trying to expose Murkoff, Wayland Park, the whistleblower, and Simon Peacock, an experimented on individual who used to work for Murkoff and ultimately decided to expose them as well. He is seemingly the man that is seen at the very end of Outlast Whistleblower, standing in front of Park and guiding him. Therefore, the ants specifically destroyed the radio towers to put a stop to Murkoff's latest experiment, Temple Gate, and in other ways crippled them monetarily. The final blast of light was the radio tower coming to a full stop and being disabled, which seemingly caused the most damage in terms of dismantling the mind. And finally, Blake in fact survived, but was in a catatonic state, having completely lost his mind, who would suffer a far worse fate than death, as the Murkoff employees mentioned that he's going to be used as an assessment tool of their experiments, who would never take it easy on him. Unfortunately, the broken radio towers led to the Noth followers believing that apocalypse is upon them, hence why they took their own lives, taking the lives of many children, many pregnant women, even many that thought that they were pregnant but were in fact experiencing phantom pregnancy, which left all of the test subjects of the Temple Gate for Murkoff to assess, with poor Blake being the only survivor, suffering the full force of their assessments. That's it for today's video, folks. If you enjoyed it, you can stay tuned by hitting on the subscribe button and the notification bell. It's been your host Star, and I will see you on the next one.